They say no one leaves Blackwood Manor the same. When Clara, a fearless journalist, decided to uncover the mansion's darkest secrets on Christmas Eve, she thought she was chasing a story. But what she found inside was far more sinister, and she may never leave. What happened that night? Stay with me to find out the truth behind the haunting of Blackwood Manor, a tale you won't soon forget. Snow fell softly over the small town of Ravenhill, blanketing the streets and rooftops in pristine white. Christmas lights twinkled in every window, and the scent of cinnamon and pine wafted through the air. Amid this holiday cheer stood Blackwood Manor, a dark silhouette against the snowy landscape. Its windows were shattered, its walls cracked, and its reputation haunted by decades of chilling stories. Clara Williams, a 24-year-old journalist, parked her car at the edge of the property. She was known for her fearless investigations into urban legends, and this would be her boldest yet. Her breath formed visible puffs in the icy air as she adjusted her scarf and slung her backpack over her shoulder. She had agreed to spend Christmas Eve in the abandoned mansion as part of a dare. Her friends had teased her, saying she wouldn't last an hour. Determined to prove them wrong, she tightened her grip on her flashlight and pushed open the creaky wooden door. The interior of Blackwood Manor was a frozen moment in time. Dust coated the furniture, and cobwebs hung like curtains in the corners. A grand chandelier loomed above, its crystals dull and lifeless. On the floor lay fragments of shattered ornaments, their once vivid colors faded. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and carried an eerie silence that made Clara's heart race. As she explored the ground floor, she found herself drawn to the grand living room. At its center stood an enormous Christmas tree, its branches withered and ornaments tarnished. Tinsel hung limply, and a faint scent of pine lingered, as though the tree had been freshly cut years ago. Clara aimed her flashlight at a nearby mantelpiece, where old photographs sat framed in dust. The smiling faces of the Blackwood family stared back at her, parents, children, and even a dog, frozen in a moment of joy. A sudden sound made Clara jump, a faint, almost imperceptible chuckle. She spun around, her flashlight trembling in her hand, but there was no one there. Shaking her head, she dismissed it as her imagination, and decided to head deeper into the house. In the dining room, she found a table set for a feast. Plates and silverware gleamed under the light of her flashlight, and a roast turkey sat at the center of the table, as though waiting for the family to arrive. But something about the scene felt wrong. The food looked fresh, too fresh for a house abandoned for decades. Clara's unease grew as she noticed the chairs seemed to be positioned slightly differently each time she glanced away. The sound of faint music reached her ears. It was a music box playing Silent Night, the melody warped and haunting. Clara followed the sound to the study, where an old journal lay open on the desk. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, as though written in a hurry. It belonged to Henry Blackwood, the patriarch of the family. His final entries detailed strange occurrences, whispers in the night, shadows moving on their own, and an oppressive presence that grew stronger with each passing Christmas. The last line chilled Clara to the bone. It is not the house, it is what we brought here, and it will never let us go. A loud bang echoed through the house, and Clara's flashlight flickered. She spun around, her heart pounding, and saw a shadow dart across the hallway. Swallowing her fear, she stepped out of the study and into the darkness. The air grew colder as she ascended the staircase, each creak of the wood beneath her feet echoing ominously. She reached the second floor and found a child's bedroom. The walls were adorned with drawings, crayon depictions of a happy family standing in front of the mansion. But as Clara looked closer, she noticed something disturbing. In each drawing, dark, shadowy figures loomed behind the family, their eyes red and glowing. The rocking horse in the corner began to move, its creaks filling the room. Clara froze as a faint voice whispered, "Why did you come here?" Her flashlight caught a porcelain doll sitting on the bed. Its head turned slowly to face her, and its cracked lips seemed to curl into a smile. Panicked, Clara backed out of the room and stumbled into the hallway. There, at the far end, stood the ghostly figure of a little girl. She was translucent, her face pale and her eyes hollow. The girl raised an arm and pointed toward the attic. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, Clara climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. The room was filled with cobwebs and dust, but in the center stood an old chest. She opened it to find photographs of the Blackwood family. At first the images were ordinary, but as she flipped through them, the family's expressions grew more terrified. Shadowy figures appeared behind them, closer in each successive photo. A soft sobbing filled the attic, and Clara turned to see the ghost of a woman. Her face was streaked with tears, and her form flickered like a dying candle flame. "He did this," the woman whispered. "He brought it here to save us, but it only doomed us all." The walls began to tremble, and Clara felt the air grow heavy. She bolted down the stairs, but the house seemed to shift around her, twisting and warping. The front door loomed ahead, but as she reached it, it slammed shut. Ghostly hands reached out from the walls, clawing at her. A sinister voice filled the air, deep and resonant. "You cannot leave. You are ours now." Clara screamed as the shadows closed in. The next morning, her friends found her camera lying in the snow outside the mansion. The final footage showed Clara sitting at the dining table with the ghostly Blackwood family. She was smiling, but her eyes were hollow, just like theirs. Blackwood Manor stood silent once more, waiting for its next visitor. On a snowy Christmas Eve, Emma discovered an ornate wooden box tied with a faded red ribbon while cleaning out her late grandmother's attic. Inside was a delicate porcelain music box, its intricate craftsmanship both beautiful and unsettling. As she wound it up, a warped version of Silent Night began to play. That night, Emma awoke to soft whispers and shadowy figures creeping across her walls. No matter how many times she shut the music box, it reopened, its eerie melody echoing through the house. Her attempts to discard it failed. The box always returned, its presence growing darker and more oppressive with each passing night. Desperation led her to confront the box, hoping to end its torment. On Christmas Eve, Emma wound it one final time and demanded the curse reveal itself. The shadows in her room coalesced into a grotesque figure with hollow eyes and a jagged smile. It whispered, "The gift must take to give." In a violent blur, the entity engulfed Emma, leaving behind nothing but the music box, now playing a triumphant yet distorted tune. Days later, her family found the box under the Christmas tree, wrapped in a pristine red ribbon. That night, the entire household vanished, their screams forever etched into the silence of Blackwood Lane.